Alright, so YCS Indy just concluded, and from negated bonfires that resolved regardless, to weirdly explained card effects, tinfoil playmat, and many gimmick puppets everywhere, this YCS was quite an event. So let's go ahead and get started with the recap. I'm super excited to get into it. It was a very fun event to watch. We are going to be discussing some of these aforementioned mishaps though, so please share your thoughts in the comments. Try to do it in a civilized manner and not come for people and, beef. Just don't beef, please. But I would love to know your thoughts and also like the video if you enjoy it. So before we jump into it, I wanted to show you something. It has nothing to do with the YCS, but I acquired a Nexus t-shirt, and I know some of you guys really like my wrestling obsession and my wrestling merch, so I wanted to show you. It is like an official, like old school Nexus t-shirt. It says, "You're either Nexus or you're," oh my god, I'm gonna fall, "or you're against us." So yes, I love it. I love it so much. And I love Wade Barrett on commentary right now. And yes, I just love everything when it comes to Nexus. So yeah, super excited. And I guess with that, we can jump straight into it. So the first thing we gotta kind of get out of the way is the gimmick puppets. All of the gimmick puppets everywhere. Look, let me know what you think about the lock, but immediately when I saw both of the gimmick puppets on stream, I knew there was going to be discussions about this, and of course, the internet does not disappoint, and I was able to find all the screenshots and people commentating over that and just having discussions about whether or not this is okay or terrible and unhealthy. And yeah, I guess my 2 cents would be what I always say. While it's legal in the game, we're all just trying to win, and it makes sense that people play those cards, and it goes the same for, I guess, all of the Floodgates and Shifter and There Can Be, which we also saw in the Vanquish Soul match, which people also had a lot to say about that. But yeah, it is not ideal. And if it was up to me, I will ban all of that. Everything that's degenerate, quote unquote, and uninteractive and just makes your opponent unable to play, I would cut all of that out of the equation. But of course, it is not up to us. So I want to know what you guys think, but it definitely feels lame just watching a match that gets pretty much decided because of gimmick puppet. I don't think that's great. So hopefully some of this gets addressed on an upcoming ban list, fingers crossed. So let us do the top cut breakdown right now. What I always think is fun to take the top table representation and results from like a random round, like round 8 or 7. I think right now I chose 8 purposefully. Because I wanted to showcase that nothing really changed. And a lot of times when you compare Swiss to Top Cut, there are many decks doing well and then they just do not really translate to Top Cut, and it makes sense. But in this particular situation, most of the decks we are seeing right now on the screen when it comes to the top tables at round 8 actually came into the top cut, managed to make it, and are doing well even right now. So I think it just goes to show the sheer power of most of the decks in the meta, or in some instances, for example, Labyrinth is the one that stands out the most. Sometimes it's just the player that makes the deck. And we all know that Raymond Dye is a really experienced player. So, sometimes it's a combination. But if we take a look at top 32 as well as top 16, they are quite similar. Top 32 has a lot of Snake Eye. And if you actually take a look at those charts, they are completely wild. It is 20 Snake Eye decks, and in top 16, I believe it is 12 Snake Eye decks. And there's also Snake Eye Salamangreat, which actually made it to top 32, and it did not make it into top 16, but still a nice result for someone piloting this deck. Voiceless Voice as well did not make it further, but still Voiceless Voice is a decent choice. I still don't personally think the deck is that broken, but if you play it well, and if you get going enough times, I think it's nice, because a lot of times it's just the issue of you being disrupted too early and not having extenders. But when you do, the deck is really nice. And then there's also Tempai Dragon. Look, there's only one in top 16. And from what I've heard or read on Twitter, etc., a lot of pro players just don't really believe in this deck as much. I think it's nice for regionals or possibly a nationals, like a smaller nationals or something like that. But if you're up against an experienced player and you're playing Tempai, I think they are probably going to overwhelm you. And what also happens, at least from what I've heard, is a lot of times players that are not that great of a caliber players do tend to pick up a deck like this, which maybe has some plays that are a little more quote-unquote simple. And that's not to say there's something wrong with it, and it's not degrading or something. Like, I'm interested in Tempai and I'm not the greatest player. So I think it's like, it just makes sense. Sometimes you don't want to do convoluted plays, and there's nothing wrong with that. So yes, only one Tempai Dragon making it though. I think it goes to show that most of the, pro players just picked up Snake Eye and Kashtira Snake Eye. Both of those versions are going into the representation, and I think the Kashtira version is extremely strong, and the pure one as well. I just think the Kashtira one has a little more going for it. It's totally my opinion. Feel free to share yours. But I think it's more resilient. It is easier to OTK, easier to bait things out and just have some extenders and to push into your opponent's board. So I really, really like that version. It makes sense that the deck is doing as well as it is. And when it comes to Melodious, this one is interesting because it kind of like, it has two versions, the pure one and the Snake Eye one. I think it's the pure one that actually made it as far as it did. And what I wanted to say is it's kind of a really nice deck. Like, if you pilot it well, sometimes players will still not really know what's going on. And it also eats hand traps fairly easily because you have enough extenders to continue going. And we saw this in like the written feature matches and just overall on streams. Sometimes you will just hand loop yourself going up against Melodious. And also Labyrinth, like I touched upon before. Sometimes a deck choice is good and a player is really good, because when it comes to Labyrinth, what I mainly wanted to focus on when talking about this deck is the fact that a lot, and I do mean a lot, of non-engine is not really gonna hurt the Labyrinth deck. Ash, sure. Everything else, not that much. Like, there's Imperm and Veiler, which, yes, it feels amazing to Imperm and Ariana, but other than that, you just face, a random opponent whose non-engine is not going to hurt you because you're on Labyrinth. And if you're a good player on top of that, I think that really, means something. And I think that's really, really powerful. Now, let me show you this next picture. And at this point, the writing was on the wall pretty much. Because how could Snake Eye not win in this situation? And that's exactly what happened. We pretty much went over how good Snake Eye is and what makes it so great. Well, mainly I talked about the Kashtira version, but just in a nutshell, this deck is incredible. The representation speaks for itself. It is extremely powerful, extremely resilient, and a lot of times when it finds itself in that hand trap war situation, you have many ways of top decking an extender because you just have so many, or like a starter or whatever you need after you get interrupted. So a lot of times it's just going to matter on, it's going to depend on how good you are and pretty much how well you open in those hand trap wars. And that's why a lot of players really dislike this format. But still, if we take a look at some other decks, which, yes, they did fold to Snake Eye, but still Labyrinth made it very far. And this always happens in this meta for some reason, but it's still a very, very impressive showing for Labyrinth as well. And when it comes to Snake Eye, it's just the fire meta we are in. Alright, so let's get back to some of the controversies. Let's talk about this. I purposely wanted to put this particular screenshot, of course, from Zodiac Duelist into the video, and people are very loud and opinionated when it comes to Zodiac Duelist. But if you saw this situation, I also want to have you guys' thoughts and opinions. But essentially, a card effect was, I guess we could say, poorly explained, where the entire effect was not made available to the knowledge of the opponent, where the opponent had the option to always pick up the card and read it. And if I'm not mistaken, they actually did, and then ended up going into the battle phase. And there was this entire confusion about what was and wasn't mentioned when it comes to its effect. So ultimately what ended up happening was the judges did revert the game state and, put the players back into main phase 1. So this was resolved. I think it is 100,000% wrong to not explain the entire effect when someone is asking you to. You do have to share you know what your card does, it is considered public knowledge because the card is literally there, so meaning you can read it. Your opponent is supposed to tell you what it does, but in any situation when it comes to this, what I always do, and what I would also encourage you guys to do, is just hand over the card to your opponent. I always say you can read it, I slide it over the table, and they can have a look at it if they want to. Sometimes they'll just say, oh, I'm fine, I don't want to read it. And in that case, you definitely gave them the opportunity. And if after that they do not ask you to tell them what the card does, of course you don't need to do that. But if they do, you are supposed to disclose the entire effect. So I think it was okay, like the way it was resolved, but I would also like to know you guys' opinion, because I think purposely leaving out information is a very scummy thing to do. So again, not saying this was the intention of the opponent, but still, I think we have to, I guess, give the benefit of the doubt to both of them and their intentions in this entire situation. So that's it when it comes to this, and then let's discuss another thing, because this YCS just had a lot of situations happening again. So basically, you know, Bonfire getting activated in an imperm column, which definitely changed the outcome of that duel. I'm pretty sure the Bonfire owner and player would not have another play to go on after that Bonfire was resolve negated because it was played in the imperm column. So pretty much I think the game was lost at that point. Also, since the opponent, if I'm not mistaken, would have top decked a good card. It must have been like Wraithoth or a Kashtira Theosis or something. I think it was useful from what people were, I guess, talking about. So Bonfire should have been negated, and no one noticed. Not a single person noticed, not the player, not the opponent, not the judges, not the commentators. There were people in chat, I assume, and of course people are talking about it right now, and a lot of them are saying that they had to rewind the stream and make sure that they are not wrong, that this was actually played in the imperm column, but you know, players just didn't notice. It was cleared up by both participants, like later in like a comment section or something. And they did say that, of course, it was not intentional. And the player also apologized to the opponent after the match when it was already said and done and they figured out what had happened. But it's just such an awkward situation because people are always going to claim the worst and they are going to say you are cheating and they're gonna come for you. And it's just what happens, especially in our community, I feel like, or just card games community in general, probably. People will always think the worst. And if you can help it, you know, just don't play cards in an imperm column and don't make mistakes and tell your opponent the entire card effect and just try and be as clean as possible, because if you try your hardest, I can guarantee you, you will not be making such mistakes and there's not going to be a single ounce of doubt against you and you're going to be able to either win or lose, but play in a clean manner and not cheat or soft cheat or just do awkward stuff. So I don't know, just try and be mindful of that because it's just a very lame situation. And this match could have probably turned in another direction if we got to game 3. Who's to say, right? So I guess that would be it when it comes to some of the controversies. Please share all of your thoughts in the comments, of course. And I guess let's continue with some more positive things and talk about some decks that did well on stream and that were interesting. And of course, there was also the Time Wizard tournament, which I wanted to mention because I love the representation of all their tournaments and that people actually like get to play them. I think that's awesome. And what I wanted to point out was how many hero variants actually made it to top 8. There's only one Blackwing, one Glad Beast, which is interesting to say the least, 2 Frogs. I don't know, I think this top 8 is extremely interesting if you are an Edison enthusiast. And another thing I wanted to mention is, and I did say this the last time around, I really love the fact that they are putting additional feature matches on stream once the feature match is concluded. So we have something to look at and something to do while we wait for the next feature match, because this downtime was always very just annoying to wait out because nothing was really happening on stream and it wasn't that engaging. But I think they are trying their best. So that's awesome. So as for interesting decks, I wanted to talk about Sharks. Of course, it did not end up working out that well for them, but it was on stream in round 2 up against Pearly, which of course Ding Hong Fam represented. And when it comes to some other decks, I guess let's talk about, of course, Melodious and Yubel was the matchup we discussed earlier. Really cool decks being represented, of course, and Melodious just overall doing well. We talked about the Despia mirror match, of course. There was Runic Stun against Centurion, which, you know, Runic Stun is, of course, still a thing. We had some Tenpai Dragon and quite a lot of Chimera, actually. I think we saw 2 feature matches and Nightmare Apprentice, and all of these cards are putting in work for this deck. Vanquisol, of course, like I mentioned before, was quite hard carried by their Kimbi as well as Shifter, but you know, again, those cards are legal in the meta and you are trying to win, so yes, it's just what's up, even if we don't really like them. Before we end the video though, just a very quick announcement. I did pick my giveaway winners. I completely forgot. I am so sorry, but when Sleeve Sheaf had that entire birthday celebration, I decided to give away some things and I forgot to pick the winners. So here are the winners for the Prosperity deck box as well as the Law deck box. This is for the Prosperity deck box, and another person won the Law deck box. So please make sure to jump into my Discord and contact one of the mods with your information so you can receive your prizes. I will have the Discord link somewhere down below in like a big comment or something. Just look out for that. And of course, congratulations on winning those deck boxes. And that's pretty much going to be it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. I love doing these event breakdowns. I really love to report on these things. So if you liked it, make sure to give it a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Again, try and have a nice discussion without pointing fingers and being mean. Things happen on stream. Sometimes the nerves get the best of you. But yes, I guess with that, I wanted to end the video. Thank you for watching and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!